All right. Happy New Year and welcome to the first webinar for 2023. I'm your moderator, Jason McBride, venture capitalist and commercial real estate investor. And today we have special guest, Adrian Del Rio, commercial investor and broker for PCG Commercial, located in Sacramento as well as the Central Valley, alongside Corey Hill, managing partner for Legacy Capital Partners, located in Orinda, California. Thanks, guys, for being a part of today's journey. Let's jump right in if you don't mind. But first, I would be remiss if I did mention the current weather out there. Any thoughts on the downpour? How are things looking?
Adrian?
Oh, it's having an effect on everyone. I mean, we haven't seen a storm like this in quite some time. Plus, the drought years has parched the land, so we're all experiencing the flooding, and we'll go the water damage and everything that ensues with it, the delays, and it's better to have water than no water. However,
Sure.
we didn't expect all of it all at once.
But you're not floating down the street in a canoe yet, are you?
Yeah, that's
No.
good.
No, that's
You guys?
No. How about you, Corey?
No, we're good. I'd say we're holding it down, but it's difficult when you're in an area that is somewhat prone to flooding. I think the area that we're in is somewhat prone to flooding, and we're on a hillside. But you just got to watch it. But other than that, we're good. We're good.
Nice.
Jason, how are you guys over there?
Good. Just a little drainage issue, but it's sandbags. Between the sandbags and the flotation devices, I think we'll be all right.
Nice.
Just for right now. So it's so far so good, but we still got at least 9 or 10 days ahead of us.
That's it.
Yeah. So it's going to be a little rough, but thanks, guys, once again. So I guess let's jump right in, and I think we can sort of kick off the new year in this webinar by getting a little more acquainted. Adrian, you're up first. Would love to just sort of take a sort of step back. Can you tell the audience a little bit about your background and how you initially got involved in commercial real estate?
Sure. Thanks for having me again as a guest. My family, I grew up in Silicon Valley in Redwood City, son to immigrant parents, and my parents actually started about when I was 7-8 years old, a roofing business that evolved to be much larger than I think anyone anticipated, and they eventually made their way into doing commercial roofs and custom roofs. However, we're in California, and up until now, we had experienced through the decades several droughts. And I remember when I would start driving around with my dad for work while he was estimating jobs, he was always very into investing in real estate. He started with single family homes and then worked his way into other multifamily, which I'll go through. He always stressed the point. He would always say to me, "Son, it's so important to have cash flow." He said, because when there's drought, which you can't control, people don't buy roofs. People don't need replacement roofs because there's no water to be concerned of. So if there's no roofs being put in, our company doesn't make as much money. So I need something to supplement, aside from working another job or opening another company. I need something to supplement those drought years with income. He was always huge on investing in real estate. He started with single family homes. Then he had opportunity to purchase some condemned apartments in a small 10-unit deal in Redwood City. He doesn't own it still. However, obviously he wishes he does. And then he was able to exchange into some larger properties. And now they're actually heavily concentrated in their niches in multi-tenant industrial, some self-storage and commercial. That was my first introduction to real estate and commercial. I used to help once they purchased the apartment that was condemned. I was helping in cleaning up the job site. He never actually let me get in there for fear of me getting hurt and hammering nails and so forth. But I was cleaning up job sites and toilets, and in the industrial properties, getting those rent ready, which is very easy, power washing and painting. I've been involved at a really young age, and take it through. I go through high school, and then right after college, I graduate. I take a European backpack trip with my buddies. Nice. that we saved up for. And when I got back, I didn't really have, a lot of my friends had already started their careers. I really had no idea what I was going to do. Sure. I talked with my dad about it, and he said, well, how about a career in real estate? He did real estate. I never thought I would do real estate. And he said, how about you go get your real estate license and then, start as a mortgage broker, because a friend told me, and he did as well. You have to know where the money comes from and how to get the money for financing real estate projects. So start as a mortgage broker, then work your way next to be a realtor, so selling single families and smaller properties, because you need to know how to purchase and how to sell a property. Then he said, ultimately, I want you to get to commercial. He said, I want you to get to multifamily, industrial, and retail. He said, because the larger the transactions are that you can get, you can do less transactions, make more money, which can transform your life and what you can do in life. So it was actually a talk with my dad that we both set the path, and it actually worked out that way. I ended up starting as a mortgage broker, worked for 3 years, and this was about 2003, 4, when everyone was getting into business. And then in 2006, I had an opportunity through a friend. I did some real estate transaction. I wasn't really called to be a realtor per se of selling single families. I did like 2 and realized I didn't want to do that. Then a realtor friend of mine that I went to college with worked for a developer in Granite Bay. And they actually needed the principal there. They were doing so many projects. They needed someone to help with the financing. And I didn't know anything about commercial financing for apartments or retail, let alone this company was doing institutional size. So 300 unit apartments, large retail centers, and self-storage. He said, I'm willing to train a junior person as long as they're willing to put in the work. Well, I got hired on there through a friend for the developer, and I was one of the owners junior, and he's the one who showed me how to do performas, how to put together sheets to present to banks so that we were lendable. So I was actually very involved in our transactions and financing apartments, refinancing them. I would actually help in the sale of them. So we were dealing with some institutional size properties. So it went to show me that even someone as young as I was, I think at the time I was 28 years old, that I could get the trust from an older gentleman well into his 50s and work on these. Once I proved myself and with bankers that I could work on large transactions, and it was not a big deal to do that. And then the Great Recession hit in 2008, and as good as the developer was, we thought we were the Trumps. We started to do big condo projects. We had custom homes in Hawaii and so forth. So we got caught. Instead of sticking with our bread and butter of cash flowing apartments, we had our lenders, our life insurance companies, and our takeout financing.
Sure.
We ventured into these more speculative projects, and in 2008 got caught with a lot of land. And with land, unless you're in agriculture or leasing out a mobile home park, it doesn't produce income.
Yeah,
it's a lot of outflow. I saw the writing on the wall. I said, this company is going to go under. And myself and a partner, remember, I had been financing a lot of our projects, which means that I got to know a lot of the bankers at large institutions, regional banks, community banks. Well, they were pivoting to become REO asset managers because their portfolio shifted from we're lending. We have to start selling through some of our short sales, our foreclosures as they ramped up.
Wow.
That's how PCG started. Is I went to a partner. I said, I see an opportunity here. We're not going to be able to get lending for any projects. Banks pretty much shut off.
Sure.
Why don't we approach these asset managers that we've worked with? They know we've worked on large deals in the past. Let's start this brokerage to sell their foreclosures. And that's how PCG started in 2009 through 2013, 14. That was the majority of the market was foreclosures throughout California, really. And then we added on banks and institutions. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac were a client of ours, and that's how it started. And then it shifted after that into a traditional market. And then going back to what my father had taught me about, or really emphasized on the drought years. How do you fill in the drought years? Because in brokerage, whenever you're anything that's commission based, and I'm not selling a widget, those drought years exist. So as we were transitioning from a foreclosure market to a traditional market, a ton of more brokers were entering the market, more competition. We got known for selling a lot of foreclosures because that was the only thing in the market at the point. A lot of owners were hesitant to use us for brokerage. Well, you only sell distressed properties. Well, no, that's the only way you could make money at that time. So it was a hard transition. So there were some drought years, and in 2016, in a slow market, I really knew I needed to invest. I needed to start investing. My parents invested. My partner in the office next to me was heavy into self-storage in Tennessee, which is how I'll touch on how I ended up investing there. And I ended up going out with him on it because at the time, not knowing, following the wrong data and trends in my own emotions, I should have invested in California. It was still a very good time to purchase, but I was so used to these foreclosure years and seeing those prices and the distress that my mind started to think that way. So when prices in Sacramento got to 60, 70,000 a unit, I thought, oh, wow, we're going to go right back to a foreclosure market, not knowing that we'd eventually hit 180,000 a unit.
Yeah.
I ended up going out of state to purchase to fill in and with properties I still own, to fill in the drought years. And now that I've owned, I enjoy brokerage a lot. However, the goal is to get to at least have the option to be a full-time investor versus broker and investor, because cash flow is that important.
Sure.
And has made such a substantial change in my life.
Yeah, thank you for that overview. That's an amazing story from start to present. I was going to ask you just to piggyback off of that. So now that you are an investor in Tennessee, can you talk a little bit about the type of investment you made? I'm assuming it's multifamily. What's the current state of that market? How is it faring in this environment? What keeps you up at night?
Sure. I ended up in Tennessee because my brokerage partner, the one who co-founded PCG, had exchanged monies out of California in 2007 when the market, or 2006-7 when the market was at its peak. Said he started looking at properties that just didn't make a lot of sense, and someone had referred him to the Nashville market. He ended up coming out to Nashville, purchasing, and has since grown his portfolio. And he said, why don't you come out here, or come out to Tennessee with me, and then you can see the market for yourself. So I had someone who had already done a lot of due diligence in the market and owned there, which was important. So I ended up purchasing, actually that trip, I actually looked up a quadplex in a certain area. And while I was at the property, I met the banker there. The bank was selling it for sale by owner, so to speak. They were marketing on their own. There was a dilapidated apartment complex right next to it, 100% vacant. I asked the banker, do you know who owns that property? And they said, well, actually, we do. We foreclosed on it. I just didn't know you'd be interested in it. I thought it might be too big for you. I said, well, if I'm going to own this property, I definitely want to own that one. I still own it. It's 26 units. It was fully vacant. It was almost condemned. So I had to go to a city meeting to give them a plan of how I was going to renovate it in order to get it to my permits, in order to stabilize it. It was quite an undertaking. It took, and I'll touch on this later, it took about a year and a half to do it. It was over $1 million renovation.
Wow.
And I still own it, and I purchased the quadplex next door to it, renovated it. And now I'm in the process of another building next door to that was 100%, all of these 100% vacant, that I'm in the process of renovating and adding units to. Now, the state of the market of Middle Tennessee is really strong. It has really good fundamentals, like Sacramento. Because of you have migration growth, employment growth, which are the two biggest factors to look for when going into a market. It's performing really well. Very similar to markets I've heard in Texas, just because so many employers are seeking business-friendly states, some tax credits, more favorable scenarios for the revenue they generate, and they're finding it a lot in Middle Tennessee, which has then increased demand for housing. Housing isn't keeping up fast enough.
Mhm.
It's a really strong market fundamentally.
Adrian, are you finding that the inflow migration is coming from the metropolitan areas around your buildings, or do you feel like it's inflow from out of state primarily?
Both. So I'm getting more from, when I was looking at my applications, people coming from, there's a lot coming out of Memphis into my market. There's also Illinois is not far away. So anywhere that's going to be high cost, we're starting to see. I would say some from the South, such as Mississippi or Alabama, that may not have the employment growth that Tennessee does. So they're flowing up, but I would say the biggest are outflow from Memphis and from Illinois. Plus existing people from the city that wanted to live in a renovated apartment versus there's a lot of dilapidated housing as well.
Sure.
So people seek to move into a fully renovated project.
Sure. No, that's really good. Jason, I know you had some other questions. Did you want to continue, or did you want me to jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I want to piggyback because this is amazing that obviously you're in the Tennessee market. You have that point of comparison between Sacramento or California and Tennessee. Having said that, obviously they're both fruits, but different variety, right? So if you can talk about like, how has that process been for you to secure funding for your investment properties? Any bumps and bruises along the way you can share with the audience, and anything you would do differently?
I hit a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. Envision yourself being a banker in Tennessee, and then a person from California whose income is based off of commission, has done well throughout the years, consistent. However, it's still commission based.
Sure.
Coming into a market where a property previously failed, the neighborhood not great. I would call it a C minus in terms of the surrounding area dilapidated.
Mhm.
Property needs $1 million plus in renovation. My first project, I'm going to, from 2,000 miles away, going to coordinate contractors, vendors, everything.
Yeah.
From that distance. That's a huge concern for bankers.
Wow.
And the looked like a haunted house. I'll show you. I'll share. It looked bad
I've seen those buildings in Tennessee before. Yeah, especially in the Memphis area. There's many of them.
Correct. And it didn't look far off from that. When I look at it now, I said, "Gosh, I can't even believe I did this project. I wasn't of sane mind." And that was the process at first. Is banks, they looked at it. They say, "We see the potential. We're not willing to lend for you on this project as your first deal." But what I had to do, I purchased the property cash. Then I had to go, in essence, raise money from my parents and an aunt because I said, what about if we renovate the exterior first? So that way, when a banker meets me out at the project and a contractor and everyone else and vendors, they don't just see something horrific, something that's a nightmare that they don't think can ever get done. So that's what I did at first. I had to raise money from family members, my parents and an aunt, and we redid most of the exterior to at least give a vision to a banker. And then once I did that and I met bankers out there, it also took a phone call from my partner with PCG to one of his bankers to say, hey, this project is worth lending on. And he gave his vote of approval to the banker, said, if Adrian, for whatever reason, can't finish it, I'll take it over. I promise you that. And the bank said, okay, we'll do the deal. But no one would touch it until they saw it, the exterior at least done.
That's interesting.
Then we were able to get the financing, get the cash back to my family members. and go through the full renovation. And the obstacles I did run into was from afar, is you have to really interview your contractors. They were a good contractor.
Mm-hmm.
However, because I was so here's something that I would have done differently.
Sure.
Whenever you do a renovation project, try to do it as quickly as possible, because and as efficiently as possible, because the rent that you lose on not getting that project rent ready and filled is far greater than any interest you'll pay on your loan.
Sure.
I was so concerned about my draws
Right.
out. Oh, I don't want to pay interest on this money because it's a big 100,000 coming out from my construction loan. I'll pay interest on that. And it took my partner telling me, hey, don't worry about the interest. Calculate the amount of rent you're losing, get the project done. I really didn't hold the contractor to the fire as I should have. And, I didn't delay in getting them paid, but I was really methodical. And something I would do different is get the renovation done. And that's what I'm doing now.
Let me ask you about that really quick.
Sure.
I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but it raises a question, right? Like the how. So, for example, would you recommend having like almost like a work order statement of work that sort of delineates or states, a phased approach? How would you sort of approach that differently, specifically holding the contractor's feet to the fire contractually? Because I think some of it's the devil's in the details. How would you approach that, if at all, differently?
That's great, because on the future renovation that I did, it was that you sit down with the contractor and go through, okay, the order, what has to be done in which order, and what is the realistic timeline. And then sometimes you can push back on the timeline, like this is too long. What can we move forward? That's how you hold the contractor and yourself to the fire, is the timeline, the order of importance of the renovation that needs to be done, the timeline, and the cost, and just have it laid out. And the future renovation went much smoother. This one, I would say, probably went 8 months over what it should have taken.
No, Adrian, I just love how when you came up to all these hurdles, it seems like the power of mentorship and kind of good advice from either your father or your business partner come up. Can you touch just for a moment, just the power of especially your father's mentorship, and then also your business partner's mentorship when you're even making the decision to become a broker, and then eventually buying these properties out of state?
Sure. The mentorship from my father was huge, because I lived it with him. So I lived through the ups and downs of starting your own business, and my mom as well. She was definitely part of the business, but I spent more time with my father.
Sure.
What was helpful about that is not so much what he said. It was watching them go through it. I saw the drought years, I saw the non-drought years, and then I saw what they did with their profits, which was purchase real estate.
Yeah.
It was more of their actions that taught me the most. And then some of his sayings. He always said, buy cash, get cash flow, your goal should be to get cash flow to cover first your monthly nut at home, to cover all of your housing expenses. And then from there, it grows. And that was something my business partner always said. He said, because we always ask ourselves, how much is enough? How much do you think we need? And they both said, get enough cash flow to cover your monthly nut for your own personal expenses, and then it just goes from there. So the mentorship from my father, another big point is that he was an immigrant here to this country, speaks great English, however, with an accent. And with me, it was watching him, is there was no hurdle for him. He said, I'm going to buy these properties, I'm going to go get lending for it, and I'm going to grow this portfolio. And there was no risk too large for him. It was always very calculated. And going back to the story of when I visited these properties in Tennessee, the second time when I was doing my due diligence in contract, I brought him with me. I said, I need to bring you with me, because I need the voice of reason. I need someone to tell me not to do this project, is what I was in my mind telling me, because I can't even believe I'm doing this. Because of the magnitude of it for my first transaction. I remember we walked the property. It's pouring rain, some similarities to how it's pouring now. And And I remember going back to the doors were falling off the hinges, and the windows were broken, wind coming through. And I for sure thought when we got back to the hotel, he's gonna say, son, because he was quiet on the ride back to the hotel, which is about 10 minutes. He's gonna say, son, you need to just focus on something else in California. And we sat there, and he was too quiet. He was doing stuff with a pen and a paper. And he said, how much do you think this will rent for? Conservatively, I told him, how much do you think the rehab will cost? He thought it was less. I knew it would be more. I gave him more. And then I said, what do you think? He said, you need to do this deal. I was like, this is not what I brought you here for. Okay, I brought you here.
Let's go.
I told you to tell me no. He goes, you can do this deal. I said, and I gave him all of the negatives. I was like the banker. I was like the banker that I was. And he goes, you need to do this. You can do this deal. And so mentor, and same thing with my partner. He came out there, looked at it, and I thought for sure he was gonna say, this is too much for you. And he's a high risk taker. And he looked at it. He says, well, he goes, just know this: if you don't finish it or don't do the deal, I'm gonna buy the deal. Is what he told me.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, I'm in. So in terms of mentorship, it's good to roll ideas off of people. Whether even if you make a mistake, even if you've made a mistake on a project, they'll recalibrate you to get you back on track. You have to be careful though, because you can't select friends that are only bankers, because the bankers will tell you don't do any of them.
Sure.
And I just happened to get two people that just said go all in. You know, do this. This is going to propel you to more projects, and you're going to do fine on it.
Yeah, because I'm doing the calculation here.
It's very important.
No, because I'm doing the calculation here. You said it was a 26 unit?
26 units.
And it's a $1 million renovations. That's $38,000 per unit. Yeah, and I think that there's got to be a tremendous amount of faith in. There's something about people that get involved in real estate, and I try to describe to friends and family and to other investors what it is. I really think it's about getting over that fear, right? That's what it sounds like in your case. Your father obviously had gotten over that fear. He had no fear, really.
It is. I actually have that in my notes, because one of the things we talked about was what advice would I give, is get in the mindset of that it's going, especially see the money in real estate is in value add. Wherever you're adding value, increasing, whether it's through a renovation, increasing rents, etc. There's going to be some evictions involved. There's going to be obstacles with contractors. Your timelines are going to get delayed. It's really getting your mindset right. Just know it's going to be hard. There's going to be times where you're feeding the transaction, sometimes money out of pocket. And it's hard. You're going to hit obstacles. You're going to hit financing issues, and you just have to work through those issues efficiently. So as long as you get that in your mindset, then the fear goes away. After having done this project which was a master's in real estate renovation, now I've went and looked at several other transactions, or even the listings that we get, where they involve heavy renovation, and I say, oh, that's it. I've done that before. I already know what to do with these. And none of them have been that heavy. I'm not scared. I look at it, and the broker or the seller will say, gosh, it needs a lot of work. I say, well, send me pictures, and they send me photos. It's nothing.
Yeah.
No problem.
Let me ask you this. So all that said, right? I mean, you had an amazing journey. You're writing your next chapter, right? So having said all that, what are your future plans? What's next, right? And in this market, specifically in this market, do you feel that you're looking at other properties in Tennessee? If so, what's the next chapter you like to write for yourself?
Sure. I am currently with the existing portfolio. I'm focusing on, because there's excess cash flow right now, and then reserves set aside. What do the properties need specifically that just need to be taken care of? One of them needed a new parking lot, so I'm getting bids for that. Just as I have excess cash flow from it and reserves set aside, what improvements, because money was so tight during the original renovation, what did I neglect that I need to fix? Plus, in these 26 units, there is a separate building that I always thought was going to be used as an office and for storage. Another contractor came in and looked at it that I made a relationship with, and he said, "Why, you have plumbing here, you have bathrooms, why wouldn't you convert these into 2 apartment units?"
Sure.
And
Of
so we're
course.
in the process of converting those into, so it's going to go from 26 to 28.
That's awesome.
And I have a building next door that it's dilapidated, and I
Mhm.
purchased it only because it happened to be next door. I wanted to control the market.
Yeah.
I'm renovating those right now.
Mhm.
However, at the same time, I am looking actively to purchase in both Tennessee and California. I'm looking more for an opportunity to purchase some sort of value add that may come up. I don't think we're there yet in the market, and then be able to flip it and potentially exchange it into something in
Mhm.
the Tennessee because I have scale there.
Mhm.
However, in Tennessee, I'm looking at value add as well. My focus is, and I know where the interest rate environment is right now.
Mhm.
It does affect your debt cycle.
Mhm.
However, if a property you're looking at now, whether it's in California or an out-of-state market, if it makes sense now with the current debt environment, etc., then you should still buy it,
Mhm.
regardless of what's happening geopolitically or economically. And the reason I say that is because if it makes sense now, it means it'll make sense once you're done repositioning it. And then once we get into a favorable interest rate environment, imagine how much more sense it'll make once you're able to refinance it. But if it
Mhm.
makes sense now, long term, there's only upside. To answer your question, I'm actively looking. I've written offers on some properties.
Mhm.
However, we're still not at an equilibrium, I feel, between seller and buyer.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
seller is not used to the current interest rate environment and pricing, and buyers can only pay so much based off of the interest rate environment.
That's an interesting thing that you just touched on.
Mhm.
Not just in the real
Mhm.
estate market, but in the market in general. There's still that disconnect,
Mhm.
right, between buyer and seller. And in other areas, in other industries as well. I think you're right. I think
Mhm.
there's going to be a time when there's going to be greater calibration, especially over the course of maybe this quarter and next. Do you feel the same? Do you feel like this could be more of a, I don't know, a 1 or 2 quarter situation where you're going to see more of that calibration over the next 4 to 6 months?
I do. That's a great word you used as word as well. Disconnect. There's still a disconnect in
Mhm.
the market, and the calibration is gonna come with a few things. Is any sellers that are in need of refinancing right now, because let's say their loan has matured or come due, and they didn't get the rent increases they thought potentially, or they were highly leveraged at the time, and they're not able to refinance, or they when they go to refinance, the bank tells them you have to bring this much more equity into the deal in order to debt service coverage ratio it.
Mhm.
Then you'll start seeing some sales, but if they're in need of selling. Plus, this is one thing that was brought to my attention. I believe there was recently a large spending package approved through the government. I believe, right, a federal bill. Well, right now, the Fed for the last year, or for the last 6 months, has aggressively been fighting inflation by raising the
Sure.
short-term rate to make things more expensive and slow the economy down.
Sure.
Well, now you have a spending bill. Whether you agree with it or not, it is going to flood the economy with more dollars, thus increasing the potential for inflation. You're going to see the Fed continue to be more aggressive.
Mhm.
Plus, you started to see more mortgage-backed securities didn't like the new spending package, and interest rates went up. In order for treasury or bond yields to be attractive for people to purchase, they're going to have to increase their yields, which will increase rates. So I think these next 6 months, when owners see that interest rates probably aren't going to come down, and
Mhm.
this is the new interest rate environment we're in, then that's what's going to start. What's going to recalibrate our real estate market, and transactions where owners have to sell. But it'll only be really owners that have to sell, I think. I don't think it's going to be one where people are going to be looking to exchange. If someone's in need of money or just doesn't want the property, then you'll see those sell.
Got it. Got it.
Sure. Yeah.
So you're sort of I would say it's safe to assume you're sort of pacing yourself as far as making those offers, just making sure you get your feelers out there, and sort of assessing the market, dipping your toe in the water, but just setting clear expectations that it could come a couple months down the road as far as getting that next deal.
Correct. It's putting the feelers out there. A lot of them haven't been accepted or countered way too aggressively by the seller. However, the offer's still there. It was based off of a price that I felt comfortable with, no matter what happened with the economy.
That's right.
So it
Mhm.
was the seller wasn't there in this scenario, and but the broker, I'm still in communication with the broker. It's an off-market transaction that the broker met the principal. It's still there. I told them this is where I would be. I wouldn't retrade it as long as I get clear title. I can close at this price, and we're off for, and not that far off, but we're off on what the seller's expectations are and what I'm willing to purchase it at.
Yeah, it's so interesting the way that prices have stayed consistent in this new environment, and even a lot of economists and real estate experts are saying that prices are going to continue to increase in 2023. I guess that nexus of that kind of euphoria of the years past and the reality of today have to kind of come together, and that's what you're talking about. And I think you were also talking about, when you're talking about that federal money, you're talking about the COVID relief. I think that's what you're talking about, right?
I believe there was a new, there was a new spending bill. It was something like 1.7 either billion or trillion, and it's money. And the other thing is, it's money that's being borrowed by the feds. So it's not money that we actually have. So it's just going to add inflationary impact to the economy that the Fed and that bond yields and mortgage-backed securities were not anticipating. So I do think, so it's interesting, the conundrum we're in, because I do think that although there be some sales, I do think prices are going to hold. I don't know about the increase, but I do think they're going to hold. And here's why. There's going to, because if you're an owner, which we all are here, is if all you hear on the news is that prices are down and it's a bloodbath, and we're expecting another 2008, but yet you look at your rent roll and your income and expense, and I'm fully occupied. I'm cash flowing better than I ever have. Unless I need the money, what's your motivation? You're not going to refinance because you're going to go from a 3-4% mortgage to a 6, 7, 8.
That's right.
What motivate? Are you really, as a seller, especially if you're unsophisticated, meaning all you follow is what the main news tells you, but you don't read all the data? Are you really going to sell?
Yeah.
Every 2008, 2010, nothing was performing. You had high vacancy rates. Most people that had purchased homes that weren't able credit wise to really have purchased a home, they were then also allowed to live in the home rent free for quite some time. So there was a large amount of vacancy in the apartment market. Plus, a lot of the properties hadn't been renovated. They needed a lot of work. That's all changed now. So I really think, long-winded answer is that I do think that real estate values on the multifamily side are going to hold. And with the interest rate increase, those buyers that were purchasers of owner-occupied single-family homes, most of them have been priced out of the market, especially the market that's 600, 700,000 and below. Because of the interest. So now you've taken someone that was going to buy and now made them a long-term renter. In terms of apartments, there's already housing constraints, a huge demand for housing and a housing shortage. And now a person that was going to vacate their house or apartment they were living in to purchase a home has now become a long-term renter. It's going to only exacerbate the issues we've been having housing-wise. So multifamily, I think, is going to hold extremely steady.
Yeah, I agree.
No, this is awesome feedback. Here's one question, right? So you have, and this is one of our final questions, and but it sort of tops everything off. You have mentors, obviously, that have been a guiding force in your life to help you sort of gut check some of your investment decisions. Obviously, some have that, some don't. Do you have any general advice for prospective investors who want to learn more about commercial real estate? Where can they start? How can they start to sort of cut their teeth in commercial real estate and take sort of bite-sized chunks learning more about the market?
Sure. Yeah, I would say if they join the webinar or the forums, is to ask if there's any real estate clubs or meetups that people go to. Because I actually go to a real estate club as well, or attend online, and you're able to hear a lot of people's different scenarios that not only do they do in California and out of
Mhm.
state. So that's one way. When I learned in the business, because remember, I worked for a developer assisting them with with large multifamily projects on the financing. I didn't really know what I was doing. I knew how to broker it and how to get the money, but I didn't know how to do performas, put together the spreadsheets and the deck sheets for our lenders. And what he had me do is actually go online to services such as LoopNet and Crexi, which you can get. Crexi wasn't around then, but LoopNet, and he would actually have me download broker brochures
Mhm.
and then read through how they were formatted, the income and
Yeah.
expense,
Mhm.
the narratives, and he would have me read through our appraisals as well that we would get on our projects, and I would
Mhm.
look through and that's how he had me study on the side. And then once we went to go do the performas and the write-ups, he would have me do it side by side in front of him, but I had to do a lot of study on my own. So for a new investor, I would say just do that, is start, definitely go to meetups and
Mhm.
seek mentorship through friends, ask a lot of questions, but definitely from people that are active in the market, actively investing, not someone that just owns their primary and is telling you about apartments. Speak with someone who owns apartments or industrial, whatever niche you want to find, and definitely download the brochures online and read through them.
Yeah.
Understand what net operating income is, a cap rate, price, and how it's derived. I would
Yeah.
say that's how I did it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
That's
key.
awesome.
That's key.
Yeah, I love that comment that you just made about leveraging folks that have skin in the game, right?
Mhm.
Because once you put your own dollars behind something, obviously, there's risk and rewards there. And like you said, you're going to go through some challenges, and overcoming those challenges. I mean, that's experience that money can't buy. So having those mentors, those individuals affiliated with those clubs, investor clubs, who are actually in the game, that actually have skin in the game, it's
Mhm.
invaluable.
It's invaluable. And not only, I would add to that, skin in the game, and are actively are trying to participate now, that they're
Yes.
not afraid of market cycles
Yeah. Yeah.
at all. Because no matter how you purchase, you're going to purchase. You should be purchasing correctly in any market cycle.
That's
Uh,
right.
Of course.
just
That's right.
active now.
Yeah, and Adrian, and I think another important thing that we've been talking about is overcoming the fear of something happening with the property, the fear of getting funding, the fear of finding the right deal. Can you take us back really quickly, just really briefly? You talked about with that Tennessee deal that you were renovating, asking your father and your aunt for funding, and that's something that makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable asking family members or anyone to invest in their project. Can you just give us a couple tidbits about how those conversations took place?
Sure. With my parents, it was a bit easier because my dad had seen the property. However, my mom had not seen it, and
Mhm.
she tends to be way more tight with the funds in terms
Mhm.
of letting them go. So I had to do a sell job on her. I didn't have a whole deck sheet,
Sure.
etc. However, I did have all of my bullet points laid out.
Mhm.
the, Although there has to be, for the amount of capital that was invested, there has to be a high level of trust
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
individual, because even with people's kids, if they don't trust that,
Yeah.
there's each child, their son or daughter has different personality types. You're not
Yeah.
going to openly just lend them a project just because they have an idea. I
Mhm.
had collateral, I had an exit strategy, how I was going to make it work from afar. And once my parents did it, my aunt was, well, your dad's doing it. We've seen what your parents have done. I'll go in on it
Okay.
too.
Nice. Okay.
In terms of, it wasn't easy. I was trying to avoid
Yeah.
going to them, until finally he said, "Hey, why don't you come sit down with us, discuss it with your mom and I, and then let's get. I like your idea of finishing the exterior, and then let's get it going." But I did have to go through those presentations as well, more with professionally with a lender, with banks. So the fear of presenting the family members, if you come from a point of, they know that you're someone that studies things through,
Mhm.
that is diligent about getting into the details, and have really studied a market,
Mhm.
and understand the risk and rewards. I'll also present to them the downside. Here's the downside of the money, how long it
Sure.
could be locked up for, or if the market turns, etc. I think once they see that, people will put money out. And it goes to show you, there's always that saying, the deal, if you get the right deal, you'll be able to find the money. And we know I know a lot of people that have purchased deals not even knowing how they're going to find the money.
Sure.
And I think I did the same thing, not knowing. I purchased a transaction, and then as I saw the construction budget go up, I said, gosh, how am I going to do this? I knew it was such a good transaction that my family put into it. However, I also knew that a partner would take it over.
Sure.
If need be. So I had a few fallbacks. So I can speak to it if it is a true deal. Depending on the market you're in, you'll be able to find the money. However, I didn't sit there. You have to actually put it out there that
Sure.
I'm actively seeking money.
Yeah.
This is what I'm willing to give in exchange. Here are the pros and cons. And
That's key. That's key. Thank you for that.
Yeah, this is awesome. I think we're about reaching time, so I think we'll wrap up. But Corey, Adrian, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for jumping on our today. I think this is going to be a great webinar for people to sort of sit back and listen to over the next couple of weeks or so. But great information, great insight. But thanks once again. And for those of you who are sort of chiming in or listening to this, feel free to connect with us, Legacy Capital website. And then also feel free to leave comments on the YouTube channel. We'll try our best to get back to you within a timely manner. But let's keep the conversation going in the new year. Thanks once again, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.